The slide comes in on a trailer about 45 feet long, single axle trailer. And again, with this trailer, like with many of the amusement rides that we move, the axle's all the way at the back. So it trails a little bit long getting in. It's a steel slide, so the construction, no aluminum, and I wanted it that way. I hear a lot of things about aluminum slides where the people who own them claim that they crack when they go down the road, or there's components that have to be TIG welded quite often, a lot of maintenance, and I didn't want to have to deal with that. The steel slide, yes, it's heavier, but we pull it with a semi anyway. It's not a big deal. It's a really big slide. It takes up a footprint, almost 120 feet long, somewhere around there. So it's a good footprint for a slide. And the top of the slide comes up to 36 feet tall. So impressive slide, very fun to ride, and we're going to put it together. Yeah. The first thing that we're going to do always with just about every ride is we get this axle level in the back, because if you start with a level axle, the rest of the ride is going to fall into place. It has stabilizers on the back, and I consider them to be just stabilizers. So they're there to stabilize the ride, not really to level it, although you could use them to level. But we like to level the rear end, and the stabilizers can do just that. They'll stabilize the ride. Ride's happy. So we backed this in, and we had a little bit of a slope. So we have these 24 by 24 sheets of plywood. They're about 3/8 of an inch thick, maybe ½ inch thick, and we put it under, and they fit exactly under a dually wheel. So we got this side up on plywood, just one sheet, and that brought us right into level on the back. From here, we'll go to the front. Got 2 adjustable jacks there. I don't mind doing leveling there, but again, the frame of the ride is already level from the rear end, so all you're doing is just transferring that to the front. And there's no twisting, no unnecessary bending of the ride, and I like that because it keeps the frame in good condition. You don't have to worry about stress cracks, and we found it to be much quicker when you build this ride. So it looks like the passenger side needs to come up just a fraction of an inch to get right, and rather than jack it up, maybe I'll just lower the driver's side a little bit, and that'll get us right. I'm never too worried about front to back level on this slide. It doesn't say you need to in the manual. We've got a slight slope here, and I like the slight slope. It's going to make the slide a little bit more exciting to go down. We'll talk about that later, but a lot of the control that we have with this slide, you go to fairs or carnivals where, I don't know, maybe the people setting it up aren't really concerned about the friction going down. You're on a burlap bag, you're sliding. Well, humidity affects that. A lot of things affect that. So what we look to do is we have a special spray that we like to use to condition the fiberglass, and we can literally control the speed of the riders according to where and how we put that spray. We kind of got it dialed in, and it works good. So we don't want people getting airborne. Means there's just too much silicone on the slide. We want a fun ride, and I think we got it working really good. So if you have more slope, you're going to need less silicone on the slide, and we'll factor all that in and get it dialed in before we put it on, because we test it ourselves. Different weights, an adult, big adult, and a small child, you still want people to have a comparable ride where it's fun to go down, and you don't want people getting airborne and hurting their backs or going off the edge of the slide into the fence. Those are all things that you're not controlling the slide properly. So again, we're going to have a little bit more slope, and it's going to be a good thing. One of the good things that I like about this slide, again, steel. The outriggers that come down are just really, really well constructed. There's a lot of strength in them. We never worry about this slide in wind or anything. We never worry about it when there's a lot of people going up and down it. It's very stable. They got a really good method of leveling this main tower, and I think that's important because that's what you're building the slide on. So not only are you supported by the landing gear on the trailer, that gets your level, but you've also got these towers that extend all the way down to the ground. So great design, definitely. You'll see as we fold these down, there's a lot of reinforcement and gussets and tubes that we pin in, and all of that plays an important role in keeping this thing really stable. So when people walk up it, it feels comfortable, it feels safe. You don't want people walking up a big staircase and feeling like the slide is moving or it's not stable. So this is a great slide. We're very pleased with this. The support bars pin to the main arm for storage. That way they're right there for you. So we lower these columns down. They have screw jacks in the bottom, and what actually determines your height is going to be a turnbuckle right there. So if you're set up on a little bit of a slope, the leg can go up the slope and it can withstand that. It's got a lot of adjustment and a lot of weight to support too. So as we get these gussets all pinned in and everything, again, we've leveled the slide. So now we're going to screw these down to the ground. We're already level, so we don't have to do anything else. So this is more of a stabilization time right here. We're going to extend them. And then once we get this stable and a little bit of weight on here, sometimes we'll screw these jacks down to bear a little bit more weight on these two columns because they are intended to carry weight, and if you're not loading them properly, you can't count on having a good stable feel to the slide. So we think that that's important too. So it's not enough just to screw these down. We're going to bear a little weight on them too. So we've got our two supports all dialed in, but now we drop this side. Now we're going to drop this side to level, and then that'll have everything equally loaded in the front. Go ahead and drop that down. So what this is doing is it is actually loading that side. That'll do it. Right there is good. Loading that side. So we've got equal weight all the way across. So there's 6 load points in the front of this slide, and all 6 of them have weight, so that's what we like. So a gust of wind, people climbing up and down, people jumping around on the stairs, anything like that when they're coming up, it's going to support them and it's going to make them feel comfortable. So when riders are going down the slide, they're on the burlap bags, they're going over the bumps, and it does shake the trailer. You get heavy people that go over those bumps, or all 3 going over a bump at the same time and they come down. It does shake the trailer and it makes things wobble. And again, this is about making people feel comfortable while they're climbing this structure, because there's a lot of stairs to climb. So they have these 2 support legs in the back. We're going to crank those down. Again, we're not using them to level. We're strictly using them to get the bounce out. You got a suspension back here, a spring suspension, and riders going over causes a lot of that. Loosens up components on the slide. Nothing that we want. So we get these things back here, jack them down, and that really does make a world of difference in supporting the back of this slide when people are going down. And 3 more on top going the other way, if we got room. again, we're back at the rear part of the slide. We got the front right. So we started with a level rear, and we went to the front. Now we dropped these jacks. Well, when you load these jacks, you got to re-level the back. So we've re-leveled it, and really the whole thing is perfectly level for a platform. Front to back, we're not concerned with. It's never an issue. It's the sideways. So now we're ready to start unfolding these components and make it look like a slide. These are pins that will later be used to connect the stairs to the slide. So they kind of put these pins back here to keep the slide from this segment from moving around in transport. We still put a ratchet strap on it that holds it, and it also has a set of guides that it slides into in the front. So it's in terms of going down the road, it's a great piece to travel with because everything stays really well secured. There's no movement. Everything has a good way to stow it and attach it and tie it down. So it works really good. So this is a pinch time. You got to be really careful here about getting pinched. Slide just needs to come over the edge of these rollers and then it kind of drops down. So it's kind of a time for everyone to keep their hands clear of anything that's happening. And we kind of just wrestle this thing off. Watch your hands. That's it. Area. Go, I'm going to get it out to a certain point where it's stable and then we'll stop. Slid this segment out most of the way. There's these telescopic tubes underneath that have rollers. So those will support the center point where we're going to slide this segment out, and it's going to be able to pivot. So it gets itself into a position where you can bolt the slide together because these two segments bolt together. So we're pulling it out, and then we're going to be bearing weight on the center point under the center of this segment, and that's what holds the slide until we can pivot it into place. Alright, that's higher than normal. Go ahead, a little higher. Alright. We've got it slid back. We've adjusted these screws to where they're carrying the load now. So rather than the load being carried just by the wheel, now the screws are at the halfway point. So now we can pull this out and get it out of the way so we can raise the rest of this tower. Go ahead and pull out. All right. All right. Now we're going to lower it down. Hold it. Tip it. Tip it. All the way to the ground. That's it. All the way to the ground. The slide is powered by 220 50 amp. So we use a 50 amp like blade style RV plug. We have those at the shop, and we have them on a lot of our distribution. So the main draw why we need 220 is the hydraulic pump that raises everything up. And once that's up, even at a daylight event, you don't really need power for the slide unless you want to keep the lights on. So we're going to be refurbishing the slide soon. I want to put all new LED lights. It's got very old style lighting system on it. It's got the mechanical flashers, which is like a motor that spins a drum with a bunch of contacts that turn the lights on and off and make them flash. Very classic, been around for a long time. Now we have LED, so when we switch it to LED, it'll lower our power consumption, give us brighter lights, better flash patterns, and whatnot. So we're looking forward to that. We also got some stuff planned for the sign up at the top. We're gonna do something really big up there and make it look really nice and customizable for our clients. During transport, the light bars kind of fold together. So on each side they fold together, and they got a little collar that holds them. It's a good way. They do move around a lot. These are probably the original lights that came with this slide. I think it was built in the late 80s, maybe 88, something like that. So I don't like any part of these lights whatsoever. So you've got the traditional VSV Carnival lenses go on the outsides. The problem is they're going around a circle. So you're trying to get a flat base to snap in a VSV lens, and you can't do it. So everywhere we go, there are lenses falling out. This is not my favorite design at all. I don't like it. We're very anxious to remove all this stuff and come up with something new that looks better and travels better. So inside these plastic globes, there's just a regular household, like a LED light, compact fluorescent lights, whatever they got in there. They loosen up, they fill full of water. Nothing about this design works. I absolutely despise this design. So the one good thing that they do have going is they have a really good joint to raise up these lights. When they're all done, there's a set screw on the side that adjusts the tip of the lighting, and you can make everything look neat and clean. So I do like that, but I do not like the way that the lenses are attached. Don't like that lighting, and I can't wait to get this thing painted and refurbish all the lighting, because it's going to look really good when we're done with it. So on this slide, of course, the structure is steel tubing. There's a lot of inspection holes and wire pass-through holes to be able to attach the lighting wire to this. Well made, but it's still tubing. So with tubing, there are no, on this ride, there are no manufacturer bulletins about corrosion or any concerns, which is a good thing. The welds that this company put on here, they're really good welds. I don't have a bunch of tubing that is full of water. There's other manufacturers out there that have got tubing, and they are like water pipes. They are filled with water every time you look, or you drill a hole in the sides of one of their rides, water gushes out. This ride, it's not like that. They've done a really good job with their welds. They've done a good job with any areas where they may have introduced water by maybe adding an electrical fixture or an outlet or something. They did a good job sealing that, making sure it was gasketed. And I notice on a lot of rides that while the welds may be good, they may have had good integrity, the add-ons where people drill holes in it and introduce water, so you had a perfectly watertight tube, and then someone drilled a hole in the side to attach something, and they introduced water into the tube. So now the manufacturer is not responsible for that, because that wasn't their doing. That was someone else that drilled a hole. So when you drill a hole in a piece of tubing, you have to account for the water that could potentially run into there, fill the tubing full, and then end up with a corrosion issue. You got trapped water, freeze-thaw cycles when the water is going to expand in there and bust the tubing. So it happens. It's a part of all of these rides. But we don't have any issues with this ride, so I'm pleased with that. I'm pleased with the owner that I bought it from. Took good care of it. They did a great job refurbishing it and cleaning it. But you never know. So what we do periodically, I would say every 3 to 5 years, we will have an NDT done on all of the tubing on the entire ride. I want to know that there's no trapped water. I want to know that if there is a little bit of corrosion, what are the limits? What's my material thickness? So we have a contractor come in and they do a ultrasonic test. So that's a way that they can see through the paint, through the tubing, and see exactly how thick that is. Because we don't want any surprises. Although there are no moving parts and it's just a static ride, it's still supporting riders, it's still got people climbing to the top, and it's still over people's heads. So we want it right. So the last report we had, I would say it was done within the last year. The slide checked out perfect. There's no material thickness loss. We've got one area that's got a little bit of pitting in the metal, but the overall thickness is still satisfactory. So we like to go with that, and we know exactly what this ride is. Also, this ride is kept indoors. We don't store it outside, so it sees very little rain. So when there is a little bit of corrosion here and there, just from scuffs and dings, we know that that stuff's pretty stable. The fact that it's not kept out in the rain, it's a big factor. The lights are done, and again, you do the lights when the ride is laying down. That way you're not working on a slanted surface. So we got all those lights up, and now we're going to power up the pump and raise this tower. So as we raise the tower, we need to pull the pins out because there's two legs up here that are going to fold down. So we kind of get the pins loosened up. We stand the tower up, and we're going to have a couple people standing up there while we raise it, and they're going to pin the legs. There's turnbuckles and rods on there. Sometimes the turnbuckles have to be loosened. Sometimes it goes right in. Usually we try to put one leg in, pin it, and then hydraulically maneuver the other one to get the other one back in. So that's what's next.
Right there.
Next, we've got to get this segment bolted. This is the larger of the two, the three pieces that attach to the bottom. So this is the one with the truss, obviously. And when it slides out, it's centered in the trailer. But the slide is actually not centered. The slide is off to one side because it has to leave room for the stairs. So when we slid this out, it's on these holders. We have to move the whole thing over the width of the staircase just about, so it can line up to be bolted into the truss. So we're going to do that next. Okay. Most of the shoving you guys just kind of take it, because we all shove it, we'll off the we're too low. Lift up, 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 up. All right, slide it. slide being joined together. I got little fingers under there, little tabs that you kind of guides in the truss work so it matches up. And then we got a bolt hole here and here. Before you go tightening this and go crazy, you want to make sure that your fiberglass is aligned, because if your fiberglass isn't aligned, when you draw this in, you're going to crush the fiberglass. And at a joint, they are vulnerable. We've had to do some repairs to ours from time to time just because they get banged around when you're trying to align them, and sometimes we have to shim them with pieces of 2x4 or 1x and get it lined in. We usually have someone on the top or on the bottom looking to see these two slide under one another, so that overlap is perfect. Again, it's not a place where you want to have damaged fiberglass is in the overlap, because people are sliding over that. So you can't have holes in that area. Someone sticks a finger into the groove while they're going down the slide. That would be really dangerous. We try to keep up with this matching edge to make sure that it stays nice. And we've already checked this, so we know that everything is aligned and slid in. Now we're just going to snug it up with these bolts. And this is an application where you don't go too crazy with the tension on these bolts. It is to hold the segments together, but we don't like thinking that we're overstressing, putting too much weight. You don't want to see one of these bars get bent because it's not aligned. So we try to make it so the segments are held together, and we don't like to over tighten it. So it's a nice straight line. These screws down here, if you don't have the screws adjusted properly, your slide is not going to measure up. It's going to be at an angle. It's not going to bolt up tight. So it's very important that when we're aligning these two pieces of truss, that these screws be tensioned just right. So you want to have a nice level on that slide. You don't want to have the slide tipped to one side or not lining up, or the tabs aren't in all the way. So it's important that we keep that aligned. We're under it. Hold it. With these slides, you get condensate, and the riders are going down on burlap mats that are dry. If there's any amount of moisture that gets on those mats, it just hangs up. It is like slamming on the brakes for people trying to get down the slide. It won't go. You could sit on that burlap mat. It doesn't matter how much silicone, anything. It's not going down. So at nighttime, you would get dew that would get on the slide, and it would be pretty much end of the show. No more sliding now because it's wet. So the manufacturer came up with an idea, and I'm sure several have done this, that they're going to put heating elements in the slide. So these little raised ridges, this is like a monofilament heating element, and it's kind of like a big giant electric blanket. The problem is just that, monofilament. So you've got a segment, it's divided into segments. Each fiberglass segment is heated. So it's just not a good idea. So for one segment, you've probably got 5 miles of monofilament heating element inside the belly of this thing. And one crack or one bad spot in that filament and you're out. That segment doesn't work anymore. I've tried to find a short, a break. I've tried with testing equipment. I've ground down to the element and didn't find anything wrong. It's nearly impossible to trace down. So with that, it's just not a good idea. But then that leaves, how do people ride the slide when it's damp, or if it had just rained, or if there's dew? There's a company in Florida that makes these slides, and he has what they call a wet bag. And it appears to be made of like an automobile upholstery, or like the carpeting in a car, where it's a very synthetic material. And it's woven in, and it's got some tarp material on the inside to keep your rider from getting completely soaked. So we use these bags. We buy them from that company in Florida, and it works great. So if it's raining or if it's damp, we switch to wet bags, and people can slide all they want. It goes just the same speed as a well-tuned slide when we got it all dialed in with the silicone and everything, and works out great. So instead of dealing with all, there's a thermostat up here that controls these heating elements, and this is all old stuff. Goes in here, and then we've got these plugs everywhere for the heating elements that you're supposed to plug the segments into after you put the slide together. But again, it is a tremendous draw on power. I would say you're well over 50 amps. So now you're getting into different power distribution needs and all that just to heat that floor, and it never works. So I love the idea of the wet bags, and whatever they've made them works great. And that's how we go. So essentially, when we refurbish the slide, I'm probably just going to remove all these extra cords, the thermostat and all that, and lighten the slide up, because I see no reason for it. Next, we got two more sections of fiberglass slide to go down. One of them has a curve to match the angle of the slide. That requires some adjustments to the slide. Sometimes you got to jack the back up. You could just block it. We try to leave it on the ground as much as possible, and then I would rather lower the slide, the back of the slide, down to meet it, or raise it up to meet it. So we're going to do that. But right now we're opening the belly. So the belly, to get these big panels out, there are these tie rods that connect and hold it together. So the doors are removable, the other door slides to the side, and then we rack the two slide panels in the bottom here. They're heavy. Takes usually 4 people ideally. We've done it with 2 before, but it's a heavy lift. Once they get out, we carry them into position, set them down, and then we'll make our adjustments that we need to make to the rest of the slide to get it to bolt together. And again, these bolts that hold the bottom in, they're really there just to hold the slide together. So we're not over tensioning that stuff. There's no reason to be squeezing that aluminum that tight, because the more you squeeze it, the more it distorts the aluminum. So we put them in snug, not over tight, and we just make it a point to always check all this stuff during the event. There's nothing substitutes better than going around and making sure everything's right on the ride. So one person may say, well, I'm just going to torque it and give it all the torque I can give it, and you're twisting things up, you're bending metal, and you're squeezing things too tight. I would rather snug it to where I'm comfortable, where I think it's not going to loosen, and I also like to go around and just check it periodically throughout the event, and that works for us. I like looking at the rides during the event anyway. I like seeing how things work. I like seeing how things wear. or is there something that I can do to improve something, maybe something that I can change, modify, maybe a different type of hardware or retainer clip if I see something that's not holding. That's the kind of stuff that I like to do, and all of us make it a point. If you're just walking around the rides while they're in use and you're not doing anything, I really like to put my eyes on those rides and see how everything is reacting to being used. So we got it laid down, and as you can see, the angle, we just need to raise that slide up some for that to fit. It's hard to ever determine when you're on sloped ground or grass, you know, the highs and the lows. So quite simple. We're going to jack these two jacks up. We're going to raise the back of this fiberglass up, slide this in, and bolt the two together. And we're probably going to have to use a little bit of shim wood under here to support that first section. When I bolt this, I try to kind of get a little bit of shim in between these two. About like that. And it helps the fiberglass to not have such a transition between the two. So I like to keep these two surfaces as close as I can get in the joint. So I always try to add at least a washer or two in between, and that kind of scoots up the surface, makes the fiberglass joint a little bit tighter. We had the generator over by the slide and the Ferris wheel for setup, and we're done setting up. And one of the things that I'm really meticulous about, if I have full reign of the lot and I can go anywhere I want with my generator, I try to put it in an area that's considerate. All generators are loud. Gas generators are, to me, they're almost unacceptable when someone brings a gas-powered generator to an event. If it's not at least shielded for noise, it should be a sound-controlled generator, not just a wide-open like someone would power their house with if the power went out for a few minutes or something. I think it's considerate to the client that you bring a generator that's quiet. Like Honda makes some really quiet ones. There's a few. Inverter generators are nice too, but the diesel generators do have sound enclosures, and they do channel the noise up with the blower from the motor, and the exhaust and everything goes up. It's also got an insulated cabinet, and it keeps a lot of the noise down. So these are better, but they still do make noise. So I always try to be considerate to my client and put it somewhere where it's not going to cause interference with anything. There's people trying to talk, trying to enjoy themselves, so I always am cautious. So I put the generator out here. It's away from everything, it's off to the side. It's not blowing exhaust fumes directly up under the slide where people are sliding. I think that's unacceptable too. So we have it here, and I'm going to hook it up The cams are going to our Ferris wheel, and the generator will be plugged in with a 220 adapter that can either go into either of these 50 amp plugs. I'm also bringing some distribution. I kind of wanted to offer the client some power since we had some to spare, and we'll be doing that too, so we have an option whether we plug the slide into the distribution or to directly to the generator. When we ground, I've got one of two rods in right now. We call them grounding kits, and I like to be able to cam my ground into whatever system. So you can't really fit a T here. So what we've done, we make these pigtails. We wire them directly into the terminal block of the generator. That's the female. Plug this in, and it grounds it to a double ground. So back here, we've got a ground rod in and another one coming for this one. The ground rods need to be 6 feet apart. That's what we do. But we've made these grounding kits up, and that way you don't have to use the acorn nuts, you don't have to use the rigid, hard grounding wire. This is a stranded wire. It appears to be much heavier than the single strand grounding wire that we have used before. I can put a ground rod in this and I can tighten it up. This is stainless steel and this is brass, so we get a good solid connection to our ground rods, and it affords us to have two rods inside there. So it's one of the things that we do to try to make things quicker and make things a little bit better. Good. When we put our fence in here, there is actually a schematic that comes with the manual, and it kind of says how they expect you to put the fence. One of my thoughts is this side, when people come down, you don't want the fence too close to the slide where a person's arm could grab it or they could kick it, so we try to keep it away. If you put it away too far, when people exit, they'll think that that's an option, and they'll exit to that one side, which doesn't get them closer to the exit. When a person slides down this slide, the first thing we want them to do is know where to exit, because the faster they get out of our queue area down here, our deceleration area, the faster we can put someone else on. We are very, very strict about the way we operate this slide. I consider a slide to be a potentially dangerous attraction, very dangerous if it's not run properly. So I think one of the most important things is if you have someone sliding down this slide, the area needs to be kept clear. You can't have people standing there, taking pictures, anything, because it's only a matter of time before someone gets hit. And a person sliding down that slide, striking someone in the legs or something, you could knock somebody over and hurt them bad. So very, very important when there is someone in this queue area, there is to be no one going down that slide. That is not an option. That's extremely dangerous. I would consider it careless. So we have a small chain up at the top, and if there are people on the stairs, that's fine, but they are not even going onto the platform if there is someone in here that hasn't exited from their ride. So again, when they slide down, we encourage them to exit to the side. We'll take their bag, get out of the gate. When the gate closes and there's nobody else in here, that is when the person up at the top of the slide can start letting people in and they can become seated. Now, if you let them in too early when there's still people in the area, someone gets on there and then they slip. Well, that's an accident, but they can hurt someone. So the one way you can ensure there are no accidents is if there's no one in this area when they're sliding. That's important. And when there's someone in this area, you are not going to have anyone up top sitting on that slide, because that's a recipe for bad things to happen, and we avoid that. I would consider, when I'm on a job, it's very stressful for me making sure that this slide is run properly. Our staff knows, everybody knows how to run it, but you have to watch for that mom that wants to get videos of her child going down. You have to make sure she's not going to cut in through the exit gate and get in the middle and start taking videos as people are coming down, because then she could be in danger. So lots of stuff to keep an eye on, and I think we do a great job making sure that people are safe on the slide. It takes a lot of persistence to keep it right, but I'm always on top of it. I'm always concerned. I always want to make sure that everything is perfect. So as they put the fence out, they've got this little deceleration area. We will put a green grass carpet in front of this, because sometimes a person that's a little heavier might come down a little bit further than the end. We have these little pads that we put under the green grass carpet, and the pads kind of cushion and slow them down in the grass. Rather than letting the mat go down across the grass and tearing up the burlap, I found it better to have the green grass carpet. It looks a little bit nicer too, and cleaner. Here we're putting in our gate area, and that's another thing. When you let someone in here to get up the slide, you want to make sure that when they go through this gate that they are going up the stairs. You don't want someone hanging around in this deceleration area. This is not the place to go, so we send them up. So we got a system down, and it works great. This is where it's at right here. I've tried so many different sprays. Everybody has, I would say just about everybody that runs a slide has their own special recipe. I'd love to hear in the comments what people like to use. I've heard all kinds of different concoctions too. Pledge, furniture polish seems to be common. I don't use that because I don't want that waxy buildup. This stuff, it seems that it wears well, it lasts a long time, and it's reliable. It doesn't attract dirt. I don't have any problems with that. So other silicones, they just don't make a difference. But this specific brand works amazing. Now, there is a catch to that. You put this stuff on, you don't get instant results. So we put this on one time. It was really hot. It was about 95 degrees and the sun was just cooking. And I sprayed the slide down and I got no result. This is in the early days of owning the slide. So I sprayed more, no result, sprayed more, still no result. I would say about 20 minutes later, after the sun had maybe activated this stuff, we had to go spray water on the slide to slow people down. It was going way too fast, way too fast. That was a lesson learned, and now I know that when I spray this on, it's going to take a few cycles before it actually kicks in and starts doing its job, especially if it's sunny out. I need to give it some time. A little goes a long way. So I am going to apply some of this. I'd never apply it at the top, because that is where people are sitting and getting seated, and they're scooting and trying to get in the right position, and I don't want that slippery. I want them to have a fighting chance at getting onto their bags. Once they push themselves off, then we want them to have a fun ride coming down the slide, but we don't want them coming off the sitting area too soon, or unintended. So I just spray a little of this down. The wind always carries it. This is about as high as I like to be up. A little shot here. And then I'm going to go down to the next set of humps, and I'm going to put a little bit there. And after we test it, make sure it's safe, then when the event starts, we will assess it again then. Normally we have it dialed in by then, so I'm going to let my workers test this out and see where we go.